All right, my friends, welcome to episode 151 of Prof and Dev Play Games. I am the Professor Larry at Prof Plays Games on Twitter, and over there is Anthony the Dev at SummerSpeak on Twitter. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Have a night all to myself.
Nice.
It's very quiet. Actually, I've had the weekend,
Oh,
so
okay. Oh,
they went
they're
camping,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to work. But I get to go on the next camping trip,
Nice.
which is in a couple weeks. So this one, I stay home, I work, have tons of meetings, and sit around in a quiet house, which is very quiet, and it's great most of the time, and then gets very lonely at night.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's usually the time when you kind of congregate with your family after all the day's busy
Yeah.
activities, I guess. There's
Yeah.
nowhere to touch base at night, which is
It's a good
something we
reminder
all
of
need.
that I like my family.
That's good. It's good to get that reminder every once in a while.
I'm like, please come back. I love you guys. Please, I want you around for a reason. So
Well, that's nice. I
Yeah.
hope they hear that from you. Maybe they'll download
Uh,
this podcast and listen to
maybe.
it. Probably not. Just before we move on, I am recording outside in the beautiful San Diego evening. So if you hear any ambient noises, like the hummingbird that just flew by, that's why there are no hummingbirds in my house.
What's the temperature?
78, 77.
Oh, so good.
It's good now. It was hot earlier, so yeah, it's definitely nice. So also another announcement. Last episode was 150. We gave away a bunch of keys for games, and actually no one hit me up on Twitter for that key that I mentioned last episode. So if you either thought that someone else had probably hit me up for it, or you didn't know about it, go back to episode 150 and listen for the thing you need to tweet at me, and then I will hit you up with that code. So go back and listen.
I mean, I could tweet you up, but I already have it.
Yes,
So
you could, and I could tweet myself, but I also already have it.
I already have it. So
Yeah. So hit me up, give you that code. Great game. But for this episode, we are going to talk about kind of an evergreen topic. Summer is a little slow. We're getting into some news next week with Smash and the week after with Gamescom, but right now there's not a ton going on. So we decided we would talk a little bit about video game writing, what aspects of video game writing kind of get its hooks into us, things that repel us, good examples, bad examples, things like that. Lore building in games, etc., and probably tie a couple of contemporary news topics into that as well. And then we'll talk about what we are playing, which is probably no surprise, more No Man's Sky for Anthony and more Hollow Knight for me, and some Halo 5, I should say.
I'm actually surprised there's no God of War there.
Yeah, because my TV gaming time, I had one chance this week, and that was Halo.
Ah, makes sense.
Yeah, otherwise, God of War is in suspend mode right now, but I haven't had any TV time. And then I'm at the end game of Hollow Knight, so it's
all Hollow Knight
it's all
the
Hollow
time.
Knight right now. Yeah, once I finish that, I'll get back to God of War because it's a good game for sure. But Hollow Knight, I was so deep into that. So yeah, let's do some video game writing discussion, and just kind of want to start by, like, in no particular order, top 3 games that the writing just really spoke to you.
Can I just say all Mass Effects?
Yeah, we'll count Mass Effect as one.
And specifically, well, no, I would say 2 stands out the most to me. Like, I enjoy that one the most, but I felt like the writing in 1 was really strong from a world building standpoint.
It was. The mechanics, that's a different topic, of course, but the
The
writing.
mechanics were rough at the time.
Yeah.
But the writing grabbed me and kept me engaged. I should say, after the intro was cool, the Citadel was boring, and then after that, it got really good again.
Yep. Basically my exact same
It
comments.
kind of had pacing on once you're at the Citadel, especially if you're a completionist. It kind of there's a lot of running around, and
Right.
it kind of got boring. But it really picked up once you got off the Citadel and really started progressing through that game. And then I think 2 just upped the level on, okay, we're going to make these characters, like, make you just absolutely love these characters. And give you just amazing choices from how you want to interact with these characters, what do you want to do with them.
Right.
Like I said, that game has always been one where I finished it and immediately started it again. Because I just didn't want to be done with those characters in that story.
And that include the DLC. Have you played through the DLC multiple times?
For 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I just purchased the DLC for 2. I've never had it, so
There's so well. Which ones? What were
it's
there? 'Cause
Shadow
there was a
Broker.
bunch.
Well, the three main story DLCs were Shadow
Okay.
Broker, Overlord, I think, and
Yep.
Abs something with an A maybe. But obviously Shadow Broker is the one that everyone talks about. So
Shadowbroker was very good. Um, all the other ones were good. They were more self-contained stories.
hmm
Shadowbroker was a very much a like this is going to connect a lot of things up, and has ramification consequences that show up in 3.
right,
So
yeah, and I
but
missed those because I didn't see
yeah.
that.
In general though, like those are. I mean that is one of the games that comes to my mind immediately for just solid writing in video games.
Yeah, one more comment before you move on to your next one. With Mass Effect 1, I think Brad more than you, but both of you were basically cajoling me to play those games, and sitting down and playing 1 thinking I'm not really into sci-fi, but I'll check it out because these guys really like it. It hooked me. It really had narrative hooks that made me think this is going to be a story that's going to be worth seeing to completion. So yeah, it spoke to me too, maybe on a different level, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's easier to enjoy them if you like sci-fi, but I think that's where its strength is the fact that the story and characters are just good. So even if you don't love sci-fi, if you just can accept sci-fi, you will still get a good story out of it.
Right.
With lots of meaningful decisions, great theme, like overall themes to the characters in the story, good payoffs. Like overall, it's just pretty well done. But trying to think of other ones that have always stood out to me in time. I don't like. I would say The Witcher 3 would be up there.
Mm-hmm.
That writing was pretty incredible overall.
Well, the way the storylines diverged and folded in on themselves, and I think everyone would point out the side quests, like the things that you didn't have to do. Like Tower of Mice with Kira Metz, for example, was probably...
Oh, right.
You know, I'd read in forums, like, you obviously go through the critical path, but do not miss Tower of Mice. And I thought, well, that name alone is intriguing, so I'm going to check it out. And because there were so many people saying how great it was, and then it really was. The whole storyline was great.
I had no spoilers for it at all. I just kind of came across it.
Oh, you didn't even hear anything about it at all?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I had zero information on that story as I was going through it. I just explored and found what I found. I think the only time I looked up anything that was spoilers was mostly just how should I approach this boss? Or
right.
I am just straight up stumped here of what I need to be doing from a puzzle or something. So,
thank God for guides.
Yeah, but other than that, like that game, like that's probably right there the best example of the side quests mattering for the main quest.
Right.
And so, like, they may not matter, but like you said, they fold back into the main quest. It's very, they don't feel like you just do a side quest and, well, that I did this thing, that's cool, but then it doesn't matter anymore. It always seems to wrap back around, give you some insight to the main quest in some way, or directly hook into the main storyline in some way. Like is it the Bog Witches?
Oh yeah, right.
Like I was doing that as a complete side quest for a while, and then the main quest came back and hit it.
Yeah, the basically the Bloody Baron folds into that, and it's just like just a crazy bang at the end.
Yeah. So I mean that writing was pretty spectacular.
What made
kudos to CD Projekt for even figuring out how to wrap that all together.
Right. Well, in the way that they wrote Triss, like I fell in love with that character, and I was on Team Triss all the way. And then later, I started to read the books and realized, oh, I probably wasn't supposed to be. But the way that they write it, like you just they're real characters.
The books.
They have
weirdly,
their canon,
where I was watching a lot of stuff of Gen Con, and I watched there's a tabletop RPG that got released at Gen Con this year for The Witcher, and one of the questions in the seminar that came up was, are you Team Trist or Team Yennefer to the design? And he had to stop himself. Weirdly, it's this guy Corey Pondsmith and Lisa Pondsmith made it, and Lisa Pondsmith is his mom.
Oh, okay.
They did it together,
Mm-hmm.
and they both. She did a lot of research into the books, and he did most of the video game type stuff,
Right.
and they worked together on editing and layout and everything. But she specifically answered. She's like, after reading the book, she was like, Geralt and Yennefer are not good together. They're not good for each other, but they're meant for each other.
Yeah, and that's kind of what comes across in the games, especially in that Last Wish quest. But they are meant to be together, and it was clear that The Witcher 3 was like showing you that, but
Yeah.
but they sure weren't good together.
No, they are not. They are broken individuals,
Yeah.
who are not helping each other. And I haven't read enough of the books and stuff where they were saying that Triss is kind of a little bit mean in the books.
Yeah, I like her less in the books than in this particular game. But I
Yeah,
don't.
she's very kind of written as kind of she is infatuated with Geralt.
Yes.
Um, and she doesn't really care about hurting other people if it gets her with Geralt. So, which maybe I don't want to read the books on that front because I like Triss as a character in
Well,
the video games.
Well, I've read 2 or 3 of the books, and I haven't come across not liking Triss. I just like her more in the video game, and I
Okay.
think that's partially because that specific scene where she's going to lie for you or something in the Bloody Baron quest, and she got her nails pulled out, basically. And
Yeah.
I just thought, anyone who's going to get their nails pulled out for me deserves my loyalty. And that was it. Rest of the game, it was because of that one scene. And it kind of speaks, again, to the writing in terms of having, like, pivotal scenes that I think in most media are huge things, but getting your nails pulled out was just a small detail
Yeah.
in a smaller story, and that's the thing that hooked me. And just having those vivid, real, small details pepper a larger epic story is where good writing happens for me.
Yeah.
And that's The Witcher had that in spades. And I wonder, I don't think this is true, but The Witcher being kind of a extant story, and they based the video games loosely or more tightly on the books. Do the best video games in terms of writing come from established media, or can original video game stories kind of stand out and be on top? And your listing of Mass Effect before The Witcher maybe answers that question.
They can. And in a weird way, from just reading Last Wish, I would say that the video games for The Witcher are, well, they take some of the world and like some structure. They've departed in a lot of ways so much from those books.
Right.
Which I understand why the author's probably not too thrilled with them doing that. But
I imagine also the fact that they're making so much money off the games that he's not seeing
also
might factor into
probably
that too.
true.
But you're right. It's more about in terms of the art. That's definitely a valid criticism.
I
would
wonder
say.
how he feels about that. Because the video games are that interpretation of those characters is probably far more popular and more mainstream than his written characters.
It becomes canon, whereas the books are literally canon, but maybe not seen that way.
People don't interpret them that way because I think most people, like you were seeing from Gen Con in that seminar, most people were approaching the tabletop Witcher RPG from playing the video games.
Right.
Not some of them have had read the books or at least some of it, but most of them are like, no, they did kind of a poll like who's read the books in the room, and there was not that many people that had approached it from the books.
Yeah, ouch.
So I'm sure more people read it now than did because the video games are popular.
Right.
But man, that is a weird situation to be in, and hopefully his book sales go up so he makes more money off of it.
Well,
I assume they are.
They have,
so,
because they've become translated in different languages that they wouldn't have been otherwise. So
yeah,
I'm sure
like
that's
English for one. Like I think all the books are in English now.
I think so. I think there was like 1 or 2 lagging behind that finally got translated. So once with Witcher 3 around the time it came out.
And to pick one more, probably so we have like some epic game writing. If I just want like my quick in and out like action story writing, it's either Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 4. Like one of those, I don't know which one. I'd have to go back and play 2 again.
Yeah.
Because it's been too long. But those were just the epitome of as if I was approaching these as like, I just want an action story, blockbuster, kind of popcorn, not detective, exploration narrative. They hit all the numbers on perfectly. Fun characters, kind of silly situations, super over the top, but kind of can't stop playing because you just want to see what's going to happen next.
Right.
And I would say like the gameplay kind of does that. The gameplay supports it, but it's really the characters in the story that drive me to keep pushing into those games farther and farther. So, like I said, I don't know which one specifically, but one of those would probably be up there in my top 3.
Yeah, for me, it comes down to when I leave the game, like, am I still thinking about the characters, still thinking about the world? And for me, it's number 1 is Witcher 3.
Makes sense.
I can't stop thinking about Geralt or Yennefer or Triss, specifically those 3, but just a lot of the side quests too. For a lot of the reasons we've already talked about, just big set pieces, but also just mainly just tons of just fleshed out, beautiful, rich detail. It is obviously you can get lost in that world because of the way that the map's set up and just the beautiful terrain and the gameplay. But it really comes down to the choices, like being given choices that matter. Really impacted my time with that game and my experience with it, and falling in love with Triss and falling in love with that story. And then continuing on in Hearts of Stone and Iron and Wine. Oh, shit, what was the last one called?
Blood and Wine.
Blood and Wine. Thank you. Just the continuation of that story. It was basically 3 huge stories in one game, right? Like Witcher 3 plus 2 expansions, and just continuing to hit the high marks. Like I talked last week about God of War, like it just starts screaming, that game, and if it can maintain that throughout, it's going to be such a strong story for me. And that's what The Witcher 3 did with those expansions. It just kept going. The Hearts of Stone with I can't remember the guy's name, but basically you're tasked with saving his soul, or I can't remember exactly what, because I put it in 2015 at the end of that year.
Honestly, I'd probably say from a memorable standpoint, it's probably the weakest of the 3.
Obviously, I'm struggling to remember it.
I don't remember a lot of it either. But I remember some specific parts of it, like scenes, but I don't actually remember the overall story of it.
Right. And the thing that sticks with me is that character's arc, and I can't remember. He was basically like someone who was presented as just kind of an asshole, and as you get to work with him and know him more, by the end you're able to basically save his soul, and to be invested in whether or not he was saved at the end. Spoke a lot to me, even though I agree with you. I can't remember much of the details along the way of that one.
I remember is the wedding ceremony, the wedding party. That was a hilarious, where the ghost is possessing Geralt.
Right.
That was just hilarious and such a well done part of that DLC pack.
Well, and it also speaks to the writing where they know, and dramatic stories know this too, where you have such high drama, you need to break it up with some sort of levity, and that makes the funny things funnier and the sad things sadder and the emotional things more emotional. It's just the pitch of the writing was really well done throughout.
And they nailed the tone in The Witcher really well. Again, bringing back the Gen Con thing, they talked about, and even at the start of the book, they talk about, like, the Witcher universe is very dark, gritty fantasy.
Right.
But not without hope. And not without happiness. There's like a contrast there of that it makes those joyful moments resonate even higher. because the world itself is so dark most of the time.
Right.
And I think the games really, especially 3, really did a good job balancing that, and giving you those moments paced really well through the story, to go like, no, not everyone's miserable. Like, there's a lot of people having a good time. Like, or they'll have moments of good time, and life isn't just a series of wake up, suffer through life, and die.
Right.
And it was really good, and I think that helped that story, because if it was just dark the entire time, I don't think I could get through it.
No, it makes a heavy story bearable, and
Yeah.
it takes some smart writers to realize that. Considering, there's light moments in the book, banter between the characters, but it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
So that's being able to breathe life like that into an established canon, basically, is also a neat trick that the writers pulled off. I feel like our list is going to be very similar, except I'm going to take a left turn here. I immediately thought of Uncharted for the same reason you did. Popcorn kind of storytelling, but really tight. And I came down between Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy, which technically counts as
I haven't played
Uncharted
The Lost
4.
Legacy, so
I hope you do. I
really want to.
I really like the story between Nadine and Chloe. It brought freshness to that universe, where it's really like guy banter and just kind of really strong Nathan Fillion, basically. So to watch their story unfold in that universe and kind of take shots at Nathan Drake in terms of their discussions of him and their antics with him, and then some pieces from Uncharted 4 that weave back into The Lost Legacy. I liked the story in The Lost Legacy a lot, for those reasons, but it's hard to choose that one over Uncharted 4, so I'm kind of doing a cheat here, just because technically Lost Legacy was the DLC for Uncharted 4.
It was just standalone DLC, but it's still DLC,
but
right?
if you bought the season pass when the Uncharted 4 came out, you got it. So I don't know, this is definitely a cheat, but the way that Uncharted 4 told the story of Nathan Drake's brother, I loved the brother, and then I loved how the end of the story, when they skipped ahead to the future, and I'll leave it there, really tied things up in a bow. It just felt like a wonderful send-off for that entire series, which I had played just basically straight. Half of Uncharted 1, I skipped the rest of it, but then 2, 3, and 4, just boom, boom, boom. It kind of all bleeds together in my head, which is why I'm kind of talking about this cheat of putting it all together, because then once 4 was done, I played Lost Legacy once it came out, so it just kind of all in succession, and kind of all rolls together in my head. But gun to my head, had to choose, I think I probably enjoyed Lost Legacy a little more just because it was different. But in terms of the writing, I thought they did a pretty good job of bringing these two female characters to life, and not just being like sexy adventurers. Like, they actually had a lot of depth to them, and that's what I liked. Last one, this is where it gets hard, because there's a lot of RPGs with a lot of deep writing that deserves a lot of consideration.
I already thought of a couple more that I'm like, maybe those would be in my top 3, but whatever.
Well, I think this is going to be recency bias and also just personal bias, but the story of Celeste was super meaningful to me, because it dealt with panic and anxiety and depression, and those are things that I have dealt with or still deal with in some regard. And the way that it dealt with those topics through the dialogue with the characters, and then the dialogue with the main character with herself through the last third of that game. Kind of, we'll leave it there in terms of not getting into too many more spoilers, but it really hit home for people who have those issues, or even just people who understand those issues. And it was I think with those kind of topics, it's easy to overwrite it, but they really were subtle, and we wove the storytelling in with the gameplay in a way that I haven't really seen. Like the way that you play that game physically by pushing the buttons and traversing the world knits together with this mental illness that she has. And it was stunning. It's left an impression on me that I can't shake.
I feel like a lot of games like that weirdly owe a lot years and years and years ago to Braid,
Hmm.
which you start playing it and you're like, oh, this is just a platformer with a basically a time rewind mechanic,
Right.
like, and you're puzzle solving and it's great. And then you get to the end and you realize what you've been doing is this an incredible emotional journey.
Oh dang.
Um, um, and I feel like from that point on, people started. You see it in Celeste as like, I think the latest and kind of one of the better uses of it. Is that people started going like, oh, you can tell a pretty meaningful, emotional, personal story, um, basically in metaphor, visual metaphor. Um, and it's really cool to see that that is continuing, and I would say evolving and getting better.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's where I'd go. If you enjoy that stuff, Braid might be something you would enjoy, as a simple kind of like platformer puzzle thing that has an emotional payoff at the end about like, and makes you rethink about everything you've done up to that point in the game.
Cool. I have it on Xbox, so I'll check that out. I'm definitely realizing as I've plowed through Celeste and then Hollow Knight now, like platformers are my jam. And there's reading on forums now, like a lot of the parts in Hollow Knight where people are like, I can't fucking beat this. How do you do this? And it's shit that I fucking just rolled through. I'm like, oh, okay. If I were good at video games, I'm good at hard platformers.
That's your thing.
That's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm good at. So it's nice to see game developers iterating, and especially indies now taking the idea of telling a minimalish story, with deep emotional resonance. Something that when you were talking about that, it brought up Unravel, number one, which there were no words, there was no character that spoke, but there was kind of like ghosts of people in the background, and Yarny's journey through the several different levels you're in kind of culminates, in my view, with him processing death and loss and going on to heaven, basically, or to a new place where you're able to interact with the people that you lost. And I fucking bawled at the end of that game, and there were no words anywhere in that fucking game. So in terms of it can't really hold a place in terms of the best writing, because there wasn't a lot of writing that you were seeing in the game in terms of like the voice acting, the dialogue, the text or whatever. But obviously they storyboarded and wrote that story behind the scenes, and it just it had a huge impact on me that still resonates with me. So
That's really cool.
What were the other ones that didn't quite make your list?
No, the other one that came up to me was BioShock, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending is whatever the ending. But it is one of the first games, and maybe still one of the only games that you play that you're like, you get through that story, and you're like, this is a story that could only be told by a video game. Its punch, its twist, its like major culmination is lost if it was a movie or a book.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a video game for it to have the impact that it does. And it was one of the first I would have a hard time thinking back on things that would any video game story before that really had that, like, in a weird way, the twist is a meta narrative on like what you're doing through the game, what it is to be a player in a game, to be limited by your choices, what you can and can't do. Like there's a lot there. It's very deep, and then it tacks on a horrible ending with a boss. You're like, it should just end here, like
right
in like the next 15 minutes, and it goes on for a couple more hours. Because I mean, Ken Levine's talked about it, and he's talked about through it, going like, at the time, people felt like you had to have a final boss, like that was just something that was like,
that's the convention of the
maybe
game.
the publishers and like just dudes like, you have to have a final boss, so there's a final boss that you have to build towards and play. Where he's like, now he probably just scratch that, and if there was going to be a final boss, it would be very quickly after the big revelations and twists. You still haven't played that through, have you?
I have not, but I have the opportunity to on 2 of my systems, so I should probably fucking do it.
The first, it gets a little bit RPG-ish, backtracky at one point, a couple points. Like, you just have to go collect things. But from a like writing and storytelling standpoint, it is pretty amazing, especially for the age when it came out. Like, it's influence things are seen far and wide now, especially with basically log files.
Yeah.
Like, so whenever you pick something up and it just has some narrative going on while you're doing other things.
Right.
It's one of the first mainstream games to do that. So,
well, it's a nice way to put more lore into your game without, it's like the codexes in Dragon Age or whatever. Although
yes.
I think that's.
But you don't have to read them.
Exactly.
And the logs usually have direct impact on the story that you're experiencing. But they're out of order usually. So they're not you don't pick them up chronologically. So you start piecing together backstory, going through it. And I would actually say I really enjoyed BioShock Infinite as well. And that was specifically just as a parent. Like, that story just stuck with me. I just don't want to play the game again.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that combat again, but the story was amazing.
Yeah. I feel like that's a common sentiment with that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that combat's bad. It's just I don't. It felt like it was getting in the way of what I just wanted to see the story through.
I feel like people had the same comment about Witcher 3, where the thing to kind of critique there was the swordplay and the combat. I liked it, so I didn't really see that criticism.
I'm fine with the swordplay and the combat. Witcher 3, there is only 1 point. No, there's probably 2 points in Witcher 3 where I felt it got too RPG-ish fetch questy. Where, I think it was when I first went to, like, is it Novigrad?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, find Dandelion. Okay, cool, I found Dandelion. Whatever, I need to do that. Oh, he wants me to go do like 3 or 4 things through the city.
Yep.
And I'm like, God damn it.
I just fucking
do we have to do this? Like, and sure, most of it was interesting, but it was after you'd done the Bloody Baron stuff, and there have been so much done. I'm just like, okay, I don't want this fetch stuff anymore. I just want to get through the story. Like, and the same thing whenever you got to Skellige.
Oh, fucking Skellige. Yeah, you get lost there for decades.
Yeah, and it's not that it's necessarily bad. It's just...
No, it's good, but...
It's very RPG-ish at that. Like, the seams start showing a bit, where they're like, oh, we have to... Nothing can be straightforward. Every request is going to have a complication, and you're going to have to do multiple things before you can do the main thing that you want to do. And so... That's the only place in the Witcher games where I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Like, I just want to get through the main story. Please.
Well, that's where the writing kind of falls apart in several games. Like, I agree with you on those parts for Witcher 3. And when you were having that discussion, 2 things popped in my head. One, you've played, one, you haven't. One, fucking Wind Waker, where you have to go get the Triforce pieces before you can go and fight. God, I fucking hate that part. And I know it was streamlined for the Wii U part. Yeah, exactly. They streamlined it, but it was still bullshit. So that just grinds things to a halt. And then, actually, in Hollow Knight, the DLC that I stumbled across, you collect 3 flames, and then you're supposed to, whatever. You go and you collect 3 flames, you bring them back, and they're like, oh, there are 3 more. Okay. So then you go, bring them back, get those, bring them back, and then you fight the boss. You're like, oh, cool. And then the boss then it's like, oh, actually, guess what? There are 3 more, and then the real boss. Like, motherfucker. Like,
yeah.
This is like video gamey as video games get. And it's just like,
yeah,
it couldn't be more interesting than that.
Sometimes that, like you said, it just with that, it just breaks the immersion. Like, when we were young, you probably didn't care about doing all this stuff, but now, older and like having played a bunch of video games and read a bunch of stories, it's very apparent whenever things are being padded or you have to do busy work basically, and it shows. And I'm like, it screws with the pacing of games, and I would say that is a fault that many games fall into.
Well, and the flip side of good writing is good editing. And I feel like, especially with the Witcher 3 thing that you talked about, was the victim of poor editing. Like, that should have been excised and tightened up. And because they were having so much fun making it, or I don't know how that works, how it stays in, but it just came across like bloat. That said... Honestly, it's just they've been working on it for years. And yeah.
It's hard to see the faults in something that you've been working on.
Absolutely.
Just is.
Yep, it is.
And you're talking about, like, the people editing it have been working on it for years. So it's not like there's outside eyes playing it and really getting a good sense.
Well, and there's still the case where gamers loved it. Like, Skellige
Yeah.
is one of people's favorite spots, and it's just I didn't do everything on Skellige because
No.
there was too much and too spread out, and it's just like I did some and then hit the critical path and kept going, but
Yeah, I just want to finish. It was
At
just
that
more
point.
at that point. I wanted to finish the game.
Yeah.
Like I was invested in the story. I wanted to see where this was going.
yeah,
And it wasn't that the content I would say that side content that I did towards the end of the game was bad. It was fine. It was of the quality that I would expect from the game.
right,
It's just my motivation for playing the game had shifted to being, I guess spoilers for anyone who hasn't played this. We have Ciri back. I want to go see what happens now.
right.
Um,
Well, and that's your impetus for so long.
yeah,
That let's just keep going on with that then.
yeah. Let's finish this. Like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like it's that rising action of like, okay, I want the climax now. Like we're there.
It's
So-
hard. It's so fucking hard to end shit. You know.
Yeah,
It's the endings. Stephen King always talks about it. Like the journey is the fun part, the exciting part, and then you get to the end, you're like, how the fuck do I wrap this shit up?
yeah.
And
But
most
the
of the
ending
time
is
he
what people
fails, so-
remember.
Unfortunately, look at Firewatch. Like I thought
Yeah.
Firewatch was great most of the game, and the ending was just so fucking bad that it made me think the rest of the game was not that great, which is unfair to the rest of the game.
And it's true, but it's just how it is. Like
yeah, right,
that's what leaves the final impression.
right,
And I think like when we talk about, even though I rated it really highly, the Uncharted, Mass Effect, the ending was rough.
yeah,
I can appreciate the games going through, but I'd be lying if I said that the ending didn't affect my overall love of the series. Not a ton, but enough to be like, oh yeah, the ending was kind of lame.
right.
That sucks. Which makes it hard for me to be like, all right, I'll play 1 and 2, but then I get into 3. I'll play some of 3, but then I'm like, I don't want to play more of 3. It doesn't end that great. So endings do matter, and tying things up is hard.
Yep. Especially
Witcher
when
3 main game did tie things up well. Blood and Wine tied things up amazingly.
yes, absolutely.
And I'm glad they got a chance to finish that story in basically its own game.
Well, it's so nice to see him at the end. Got his little house, little
Yeah.
life there, and then the obviously the epilogue talking about what happened afterwards or whatever.
Yeah.
So good. I want to play Witcher
It's
3 again
good.
now. But
There's part of me that like now seeing the stuff from the tabletop game and everything, I'm like, man, I need to get it for PS4 and play it on PS4.
yeah, I gotta get those sweet trophies.
Exactly. But there's a part of me that's like, I could play it again, and then I remember about just how many hours that is.
Yeah, when you could be playing new experiences and living.
I
your
could.
life. Yeah, but it's so fucking good. It deserves
it's
to be
so
played again.
good.
Yeah, yeah. I've only played through it once, so. I
only played through it the one time. Well,
It needs to
yeah,
play
I
through
played through
again.
it the one time, and then I bounced off the beginning part twice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, White Orchard is a little rough introduction to that game. Speaking of writing, that's also bloated.
it is bloated. They're trying to teach you so much at the beginning.
There's a lot to learn, of course. So,
yeah.
Like Gwent. Sit and play 20 hours of Gwent and then start playing. Oh my god. We didn't talk about the video game with the best story, best writing, and that would be Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
I mean, how can you go wrong with Street Fighter lore? Hey, so I worked at Sabretooth when we were developing the Universal Fighting System card game where we had the Street Fighter license.
Mm-hmm.
I read so much Street Fighter lore. Comics, lore bibles. Oh, there's a story there. There's a deep story there, and it is so dumb. So
It's fucking
dumb.
garbage. Oh,
It's
man.
such garbage. But oh man, did I read it, and like it's garbage in the way that it's very much just a soap opera.
Well, yeah, and it's
And
the
it's
schema
basically
that you hang.
wrestling stories.
Exactly,
Basically.
right.
Like it's very high drama, very ridiculous. Not great writing overall, but I can't lie and say I wasn't amused. Like I kept flipping pages because it was pretty amusing and funny.
I can't
But,
believe
you
there's a
know.
lore Bible. I want to find
Oh
that.
yeah,
Oh my god.
there is a story. There is a very distinct, continuous story, and there is lore to it.
Can you sum this up in the length of a tweet?
No,
Oh, god damn it.
not even close.
Okay, we'll move on from that then.
But all the characters have their own unique reasons for why they're fighting, and like
Yeah.
in the different tournaments or not in the tournaments, and
Why is Cammy wearing basically nothing?
I don't know.
Does
They
that
don't
come-
talk about
No,
why
okay.
they wear what they wear.
Yeah.
Chun-Li has the world's strongest thighs.
Well,
I know that.
Fucking, of course she does.
Like they're just insane.
Yeah. They're as big as
That is a
E
specific
Honda.
call out in the like things to know about Chun-Li. Her thighs are insane.
Does the lore Bible talk about what the E in E Honda stands for?
I can't remember. It might,
I'm sure that's somewhere on the internet. Hit us up on Twitter. Let
sure.
us know.
but I mean, it's probably in like the comics and stuff.
Yeah.
Like most of the lore has come out through the different comic series that's out there.
Today I learned there are Street Fighter comics. Of course I should have
Oh
known
yeah,
that.
there's a lot of them. They've been going on for like at this point.
Wait, they're still fucking going on? Oh my god.
14 years.
Probably with Street Fighter 5 continuing on through that.
Yeah, I don't even know how they do like the bridging into new games and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of lore around, of course, Kin and Ryu and
Right.
Akuma and all that. Like,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of backstory there.
Right.
I don't know. It's silly, but
There's enough
it's there.
There's enough there to hang the
Capcom
game
has
on.
thought it through. There you go. That's what I have to say. Like,
Yeah.
they have thought through this world and the characters.
What a fucking statement.
Yep.
Yeah, so that might wrap it up for video game writing and what we like and what we, I don't know, has captivated us. And maybe we can slide right into what we're playing. Maybe I'll go first with Hollow Knight because it kind of ties into the story a little bit, the writing. Hollow Knight kind of tries to do a Dark Souls thing where the story's told through like little snippets throughout the world. I think Dark Souls is more like item descriptions and things like that.
Yeah.
Hollow Knight definitely has item descriptions, has a bestiary where it has descriptions of the characters that you're fighting. And then you find like little tablets and little NPCs.
Are there NPCs?
Yeah, there's tons of NPCs, and they
Do
all
they
have
talk a little bit, like little?
they all have little snippets, like little stanzas.
Yeah, that's Souls. Very Souls.
Yeah, and then you piece that all together, and you get this really deep story. But as you're piecing it together, it's at least at the beginning so slight that you're like, "Who the fuck am I? Where am I? What is this place?" And I'm very interested in the details. Earlier we were talking about Witcher 3, where like it's the big, huge story, but also the details, and together those things work together. Together those things work together. That was a stupid statement, but when you have those things together, it makes a really rich story. With Hollow Knight, for me right now, it's all details. There's no big thing, other than I'm going to fight Hollow Knight, and that's all that I know right now. So I'm hoping it ties together at the end. But I think I texted you earlier in the week, said I'm at the end game. I've got the 3 Dreamers, and it's time to go fight the Hollow Knight. And then I realized, I haven't been over here yet. I busted open, and it's a huge area that I've never explored. And then from there, I got an item that lets me explore another area that I've never explored before, to get an ability that lets me go back to previous places and explore deeper in those places in these little, there's like gates basically that made of like black tar kind of stuff that I couldn't get through, and I never knew what it was until now. Now I can go back to those places and explore the previous places even more. So where I thought I was done or getting done, I've probably got another 5 to 10 hours, and I'm already 30 hours into this game.
And this is made by 2 people.
2 people. Two
people.
Fuckers.
It's just ridiculous.
2 amazing Australians, man. It's the amount of content is ridiculous. And there's August 23rd is the last free DLC, and people were lamenting the end of the thing, end of the DLC for the game, and people were like, no, this is the end of the free DLC. Like, they're probably going to keep going. So it's just for 15 fucking bucks, man. You got to get on that.
Want to know why I have imposter syndrome? This is why I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because of
holy crap,
what they've been able to do.
Yeah, when I look at other people, like 2 people, and just make these insane games.
Yeah. It's hard not to compare yourself, but
I won't. But it's
shouldn't.
still one of those things that it's just like, wow, guys.
Well, it kind of makes
you.
Kind of makes me feel like, what the fuck have I done in my life? Like, this is like a magnum opus. This is an amazing game in this genre. Like
you have helped many people's lives, improved the lives of many people and your students.
What?
You've improved the lives of your students. You've done plenty of.
Oh, got it.
Not through Hollow Knight, through teaching.
Oh, I was like, wow, we went on a tangent that I just got completely lost.
You just said, you're like, man, it makes me think, like, what have I done with my life? And I'm like, you've done plenty of good things with your life.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I guess what I should have said was my artistic life. Because, like, I started and stopped projects and things have got off the ground and went for ways and then kind of sputtered out. And wow, this thing is just amazing with two people. But no, absolutely, I've done great things in my life. My students would probably say so. So that's good news.
Most of them probably.
And you've made great games. Heromancer, for example, or Eromancer.
Euros.
There we go.
All the Euros.
It's like, how the fuck do you say that word? So Hollow Knight is just
Euros.
but no, Hollow Knight's still very much the game that I'm playing. And then I also played Halo 5.
I know, and you texted me about that.
Yeah, I loved playing Halo 1 through 5 with Brad. Doing co-op was fun. The story of Halo is, I think there's a lot of lore in the games, and obviously in the games and the different terminals you can find, but also the books and the comics and all the extra media that's not really in the game, which seems to be a Bungie specialty. But goddamn if I'm not bored by corridor shooters at this point. Like, if I am in love with platformers, I think shooters are my least favorite genre. Which, I don't know. We're going to embark on the Destiny 2 campaign, which you and I are also going to do.
Oh, yeah.
So...
it's sitting there.
Yeah.
I look at it, and then I kind of sigh and go, do I really want to do this?
I liked the story. It was much better than Destiny 1, I'll say that.
That's not hard, though. That's not a high bar.
I know.
That's not setting a high bar.
It's worth what you paid for it. How's that? Okay.
Oh, good.
Let me rephrase this.
Awesome. It's worth it. It's worth probably a grande coffee.
If you enjoy the gameplay, it's probably worth your time, because the gameplay plus the story.
Yeah, I mean, they make good
gameplay.
Enough.
Yeah.
And I expect I'll enjoy it enough. It won't overstay its welcome. I'll enjoy it enough for gameplay.
But I will say, this is playing Halo 5, getting to the end, was the first time in the whole series where I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Because the way that it finishes, not with the Locke Master Chief thing, but with the final thing in the story related to Cortana, was super interesting. And I want to know where that goes. And I'm not sure if they're going to continue that story or not. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I assume they are.
Yeah, I hope so. Because it was super interesting, like what she's doing and what she wants to do and how she's doing it. Like, finally, I'm super interested in her and Master Chief at this point. And that's about it. Everything else, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was I loved playing through it, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm pretty bored of shooters. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I will say Halo 1 through, because I did not play 4 or 5. Halos 1 through 3, I played it co-op the entire way through, and the only reason I enjoy it is because I played it co-op. That I had no interest. Like, I think back and I'm like, I could play Halo. I'm like, I don't want to play Halo. It was something I played co-op, and it was enjoyable to play with another person. I have no interest in playing those games solo, and just for the story or whatever. My biggest memory is in Halo 1, and is just griefing my friend Carl over and over and over. Like, respawn, and then just rifle butt him, kill him immediately, and just keep doing it over and over until he's like, I'm not going to respawn. You're just going to kill me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to kill you.
We had plenty of those situations playing through the 5, so that was a lot of fun.
That's what I remember. That's my weirdly. None of the story stands out. The thing that stands out, and my only real strong memory of the Halo games, is the fact of me griefing my friend while playing co-op.
Right.
Well done, Bungie. Thumbs up.
Yeah, that's awesome. So those are the 2 games I've been playing this week: Hollow Knight and Halo 5.
So this week, I dug deeper into the new No Man's Sky update and spent a lot of times flying around. Holy crap, is it a grindy game. Oh my god. I mean, it's Minecraft. It's like any other survival building game. It's grindy like that. There's so many things to collect now. Blueprints to find. materials to refine to do bigger, better things, build bases, dig into the earth. When did they put terrain manipulation in? Like,
I think it was this
full,
update.
full terrain manipulation. You're just like, I'm going to dig into the planet now. Why not?
Are you in creative mode or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they hide things underground.
Right.
Like there's, like you can do deep scans, and you're like, oh, there's like cargo pods hidden under the ground.
Oh,
I'm
shit.
gonna dig down to one and get stuff from it.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember that at all. It must be the new one.
No, there's like, that's just part of the game now. The amount of content in it is kind of insane. To a point of I'm like, this is kind of overwhelming, a little bit. Like, where the first one was kind of boring, now there's so much that it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, I'll probably do a little bit more in it, and it's kind of relaxing, but I think it will be soon time, like, probably start Destiny 2.
Yeah, let me know when you get to the Spark mission.
I just need something that's just like, all right, more focused.
Man.
But when you talk about writing, like No Man's Sky is one I wish there was more writing. Like the galaxy is interesting. Like there's the different races, the fact that there's no humans,
Right.
and that specifically there are no humans, or like, and if you're a human, it's a weird thing. But they never really delve into it. They don't really delve into like what the Atlas is, and kind of, it's all mysterious, but they don't feel like the mystery's ever solved or told.
I fucking hate that. Like on Lost, like the smoke monster or whatever, like this, they build this mystery and then they never fucking do anything with it. They think that the mystery itself will kind of propel you forward, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and I
ultimately.
would like more deeper. I do remember when I got, because I got the like collector's edition of No Man's Sky with soundtrack, but it came with a novella, and the novella was really cool. And then I play it, and I'm like, there's none of that in this.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish there was a little bit more. Doesn't have to be a ton, because I get that it's an exploration game, but I would love it if there was just a little bit more there, tying you to like what the universe is and why it's there. But
that comment about the novella, just a quick aside, reminds me of Halo. Going back to Halo, like the one thing of lore that I like about Halo was the Hunt the Truth podcast that came out before Halo 5. That was with Keegan Michael Key.
Yeah,
it was so fucking good, and then had nothing to do with the goddamn game.
Nope. I mean, but that's the same thing with the I Love Bees radio drama.
Oh yeah, that was
It was so good. It was hours and hours of radio drama that was just amazing. In the like, you didn't even know when you were starting it that it was specifically in the Halo universe.
Yeah.
Like, people were unlocking this through the big ARG that was going on, but no one really knew what it was. It was only like till like halfway through the game that they started dropping terms from Halo and the characters were saying, and you're like, oh, this is in universe.
That's the best, man.
And it was such a good story, and it was so amazing. And then Halo 2 came out, and it did nothing with it at all. It's like it was completely separate, in which it was completely separate. It was the ARG and the radio drama was all done by a separate company.
Right.
Like, working off Bungie's lore Bible, but Bungie wasn't using any stuff that they were creating back into the game.
Yeah.
It just made me sad. Like, that was probably the time I was like, screw it, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I'll play these games solo, like, or co-op, but I was invested, and you did nothing with it, so I'm done.
Yeah, that's definitely something that came across again with Halo, with the Hunt the Truth podcast, which that's annoying.
That was before 4?
No, it was before 5. It was
before
the thing
5,
leading up to
which
5.
I mean, that's not Bungie anymore. That's just Microsoft.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess it's the same way. Like, it's a marketing thing.
Right. It's the second.
It's working off the lore Bible, and like, but the actual like 343, they're like, this is just a marketing. Like, we're not using that in our game.
Right. Well, and it seems to hit in the second game of the trilogy, like the 343 trilogy, basically.
Yeah.
But still, we got 2 great pieces of content in this universe that otherwise we're not super interested in. So, I mean, I'd probably go listen to Hunt the Truth again just because it was that fucking good.
Yeah. I have the audio, the radio drama somewhere. I saved it all.
What's it called again?
I mean, the ARG was called I Love Bees.
Oh, okay.
And I always knew it as the I Love Bees radio drama. But
are you saying I Love Bees or Isle of Bees?
I Love Bees.
Aha. It's weird how
That
those
was
two
what the
things sound
ARG
the same.
was. Because it was in a trailer that ran before a movie. Like, they put Halo 2 trailers in front on like movie screens, like that ran before a movie, and for like the briefest of a couple frames, the Xbox logo, like some text under it, switched to "I love bees," and then switched back to what it normally was. And people found a website called ilovebees.com, and like, seriously, this went on for a month and a half of people just digging through this and like, oh, how does this relate to Halo? And it totally did. And people were like searching for phone booths around the U.S. So because there are specific times those phone booths would get called and they would get asked a question that someone needed to answer that would unlock more of radio drama and more puzzles. So it was insane. It was insane to kind of be part of the internet at that time, and people were talking and figuring this out. And it was pretty much pre-social social media. Like Facebook was around, but it wasn't used a ton. I guess MySpace was around, but that's not like this was all being done on like
forums and stuff.
Forums and fan sites.
Well, damn, that sounds pretty intriguing, actually.
Kotaku was posting articles on it about like, hey, people figured this out and stuff like that. So it was a very exciting time, and it will never happen again.
Yeah. But I mean, it got people talking about it, and I guess that's what the firm was hired to do, and get people talking about the upcoming game in some way. So,
yeah,
fun stuff. There's so much ancillary stuff with video games that some is dumb, like any Street Fighter comic is probably dumb, but there's also some cool stuff too. So, sorry to shit on Street Fighter comics. Any
I don't know. I mean, I think because you're a fan of Street Fighter, I think you would probably find them amusing. Like, are they high art? No.
Yeah.
Are they entertaining for someone who enjoys the Street Fighter characters? Yeah. Okay. They are.
Maybe I'll make it my homework to go read one this week.
But you're also a person that you enjoyed wrestling to a point.
I enjoyed wrestling a fucking ton.
Because I mean, but it's just melodrama.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
If you treat it as like they're just telling a very melodramatic story through like wrestling, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Right.
It's very similar to the Street Fighter comics. They're a little tongue in cheek, but a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, I might make it my homework this week to check one out.
Yeah. Wherever it starts, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I'll just dive in somewhere. Who knows? Well, that was episode 151 of Prof and Dev Play Games. We talked about some writing we liked. We talked about games we're playing. And next week we will come to you with news of the Smash Brothers Ultimate, because there's a direct coming up on the 8th at 7 p.m. Pacific. I wonder what the hell that's going to be about.
Modes, maybe? I mean, they've shown all the characters.
Maybe
they could show some more characters if they wanted to, but I could see them talking about modes a lot.
I hope you're right. And the online, how that's going to work.
And online, anything. Yeah. Show me how online is going to be better than it currently is.
Oh my god, I have very little hope, which sucks. But yeah, we'll bring that news to you next week. Until then, this has been at Prof Plays Games and over there at Summer Speak, and we'll be back next week.
Night all.
Night, folks.